What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Thursday, February 5th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, let's take a look at the point guard position. Now this is a FanDuel play for me. He took the game off last game, he got a rest, so he's going to be good to go this game. Should play between 28 to 32 minutes. So I like Kemba Walker from the Boston Celtics playing the LA Clippers, who have a good defense overall, but they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Kemba Walker has averaged 28.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. He's projected at 30.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's still only $5,700 FanDuel salary, and he's $800 more on DraftKings. So you could play him on DraftKings. He could hit value on DK, but I think he's a much safer play on FanDuel, where he really only needs about 27 fantasy points on FanDuel to get you 5 times value or more, and he's got 40 plus fantasy point upside. So I like Kemba Walker here versus the LA Clippers. The other point guard that I like is Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers playing the New Orleans Pelicans, who have the 10th worst defense overall, and they give up the 12th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Malcolm Brogdon has averaged 40.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 36 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. Now, he's kind of trailed off a little bit the past couple of games. He's scored 25, 37, and 42 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 28, 28, and 37 minutes. But he's projected at 39.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $7,800 FanDuel salary and $200 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. So we have a fast-paced game, a high-scoring game, and a decent matchup coming off of a not-so-great game last game where he only played 28 minutes. So I like Malcolm Brogdon here versus the New Orleans Pelicans. Now the other point guard that I like, because of the injury to Markelle Fultz, looks like he's getting some extra run here, played over 30 minutes in the last 3 games. I like Cole Anthony from the Orlando Magic playing the Chicago Bulls, who have the 12th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Cole Anthony has averaged 23 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He scored 26, 29, and 15 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 32, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 24.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $5,000 FanDuel salary and $700 more on DraftKings. So I like that FanDuel price. This is more of a FanDuel play for me. Again, he could hit value on DraftKings, but much safer play on FanDuel. Nice matchup here. So I like Cole Anthony here versus the Chicago Bulls. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. Now, this is a FanDuel play for me. He's pretty much a lock for me on FanDuel. I like Jordan Clarkson from the Utah Jazz playing the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 4th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good against opposing shooting guards, Jordan Clarkson has averaged 27.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 27, 12, and 23 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 24, 21, and 25 minutes. He's projected at 28.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6.3 times value because he's only $4,500 FanDuel salary, but he is $1,000 more on DraftKings. But great FanDuel price here, guys. He doesn't need much to hit value on FanDuel. Only really needs about 20 fantasy points to hit value when he's averaging 27.4 fantasy points per game on the season. I think that's a smash FanDuel play. So I like Jordan Clarkson here versus the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, another shooting guard that I like is Tyler Hero from the Miami Heat playing the Washington Wizards, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the second most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Tyler Hero has averaged 29.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He scored 21, 27, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 34, 33, and 40 minutes. So he's playing monster minutes, and he's got some pretty big upside. His high for the season is a 48 fantasy point game. He was smashing value and smashing those fantasy points earlier in the season. Totally capable of getting you 35 plus fantasy points in this matchup and crushing value. But he's projected at 29.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $6,000 FanDuel salary and $500 more on DraftKings. Now, Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 227.5 points scored in this game and a fantastic matchup. So I like Tyler Hero here versus the Washington Wizards.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on.
Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Mikal Bridges from the Phoenix Suns playing the Detroit Pistons, who have the 8th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing small forwards. Mikal Bridges has averaged 28.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 28, 21, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 38, and 32 minutes. So he's playing a ton of minutes, and he's projected at 28 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $5,400 FanDuel salary and $100 less on DraftKings. So I like Mikal Bridges here versus the Detroit Pistons. Okay, and sticking with the Bridges brothers, I don't think they're brothers, but they got the same last name. I like Miles Bridges from the Charlotte Hornets playing the Utah Jazz, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing small forwards. Miles Bridges has averaged 22 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 30, 23, and 24 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 27, and 28 minutes. He's projected at 22.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $4,800 FanDuel salary and $600 more on DraftKings. So I like that FanDuel price. Now, I like that he played 32 minutes last game. If he can get 28 minutes or more in this matchup, I think he's going to hit value here.
So I like Miles Bridges here versus the Utah Jazz. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. Okay, due to the injury to Aaron Gordon, I like Chuma Okeke. Now, honestly, guys, I got to check this guy's name. I don't know if it's pronounced Okeke, but I'm going to go with it. So, Chuma Okeke, he scored 17 fantasy points last game, playing 17 minutes. He's projected at 20 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.7 times value. He's only $3,500 FanDuel salary, and he's $200 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 222.5 points scored in this game, so I like Chuma Okeke here versus the Chicago Bulls. Okay, another power forward that I like is Domantas Sabonis from the Indiana Pacers playing the New Orleans Pelicans, who have the 10th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing power forwards, Domantas Sabonis has averaged 44.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 36 minutes per game with a 25% usage rate. He scored 54, 58, and 29 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 35, and 36 minutes. He had a 37% usage rate last game, and he's projected at 44.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $8,800 FanDuel salary and $200 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game, so I like Domantas Sabonis here versus the New Orleans Pelicans. Oh, now I just happened to catch this, guys. The game total for Toronto versus Brooklyn is 241.5 points. So that's a super high scoring game. Now, I didn't feature any of these players in this video, but for Brooklyn, you got Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant. I mean, pick one of those guys. One of those guys is going to go off. Kind of hard to figure out which one of them it's going to be. But then on the Toronto Raptors side, you're looking at guys like Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and Kyle Lowry. So I think that's a nice game to target. Even though I didn't make any of those picks in this video, I think it's a great game to target maybe one of those players from each of those teams because Vegas thinks it's going to be such a high-scoring game. Both of those teams have great matchups, so I'll just leave it there. Okay, moving on to the center position. I love this FanDuel price. I like Andre Drummond from the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a good defense overall, and they have a middle-of-the-pack defense against opposing centers. Andre Drummond has averaged 44.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 32% usage rate. Now, okay, he only scored 19 fantasy points last game, but he only played 22 minutes. He sat out the game before that, but he scored 60 fantasy points in 32 minutes in the game before that. So my guess is his minutes are going to go up. And take a look at his last 5 games versus the Milwaukee Bucks. He scored 59, 59, 39, 35, and 46 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Milwaukee Bucks. He's projected at 42.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.7 times value. He's $7,500 FanDuel salary and $700 more on DraftKings. I mean, I like that price on both sites, but I think he's a smash FanDuel play. That salary is just way too low, so I like Andre Drummond here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, another center I like is Steven Adams from the New Orleans Pelicans playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing centers. Steven Adams has averaged 27.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. He scored 36 fantasy points last game, played 28 minutes. He's projected at 27.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's $5,100 FanDuel salary and $700 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game, so I like Steven Adams here versus the Indiana Pacers. And the other center that I like is Nikolai Vucevic from the Orlando Magic playing the Chicago Bulls, who have the 12th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing centers, Nikolai Vucevic has averaged 44.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 47, 44, and 16 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 37, 35, and 28 minutes. He's projected at 46 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $8,800 FanDuel salary and $300 less on DraftKings. So I like Nikolai Vucevic here versus the Chicago Bulls.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.